If you and I were to run into each other out on the street, out in public or whatever, you wouldn't probably look at me twice. Not because I'm not much to look at, but I mean, grand scheme of things, you see probably hundreds or maybe even thousands of people a day. You might notice that I walk with a little bit of a limp, or you might notice that I'm a bit out of breath for whatever it is I happen to be doing at the moment. But the grand scheme is tomorrow, you won't remember that you saw me. The reality is that to the average person who sees me out in public or whatever, or if this is your first time ever viewing one of my videos, you don't know what I'm going through. And the problem with that is nobody knows what anybody else is going through either. There are a lot of people out there who criticize people for claiming to be disabled, for being on Social Security disability, for being on welfare, for needing assistance in their day-to-day lives. If you saw me out in public, you wouldn't know that I'm one of those people. As a direct result of my condition, which is known as Wegener's granulomatosis, I have a lot of medical issues that require a lot of doctor's visits and a lot of my time to keep me healthy enough to get to my next doctor's visit. A minimum of 3 days a week I'm in a clinic, whether it's for dialysis or treatments or doctor's visits or medical procedures or whatever the case may be. And that takes up a lot of my time. And you may be thinking, well, but you spend all this time making videos, that's time you could be at work. And you're kind of right, except that most of my doctor's visits, whether it's dialysis or my rheumatology visits or my hematology visits or whatever, happen in the middle of the day. My dialysis starts at noon and goes until 3. That's 3 days a week. And sure, I could go in at the 6 o'clock point or 6 o'clock in the morning, but it's still gonna put me there for 3 to 4 hours a day, 3 days a week, which means even if I had the opportunity for a full-time job, those 3 days a week, I'd still be getting in late every day. In addition to that, I've still got multiple doctor's appointments every week, and I've still got multiple clinic visits every week, and I've still got procedures happening sometimes several times a month. And the reality is, a full-time employer doesn't want somebody like me. And even if they did, I can't be reliable to show up at 8 o'clock every morning, 5 days a week. And if I did show up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 5 days a week, I'd have to leave midday, whether it was at noon or 3 or whatever, just for my dialysis. That doesn't include doctor's appointments. That doesn't include medical procedures. That doesn't include any of that stuff that I have to do on a day-to-day basis to stay alive. Because of my condition, my kidneys have basically failed on me. I'm currently in the process of getting a lot of testing done. In fact, I've got a couple more tests to do, and my position on the kidney transplant list will finally be activated. And then at that point, I'll be able to be considered to receive a donor kidney. In the meantime, I have to go to dialysis 3 days a week, minimum. The problem is, it could be 5 years before I'm able to get a donor kidney. So what am I supposed to do in the meantime? Even if I were to go into a job and lie to the employer in order to get whatever position I'm after, that's just it. I'd be lying to the employer to get that position. And I would appear to be flaky and unreliable, and I'd have to call in sick more days than I would be able to show up because, again, I have to do dialysis regularly. Even when dialysis is over, most of those days I feel like crap afterwards. So even if I went in at 6 o'clock and was able to go to work at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning and still put in 8 hours, it wouldn't be a true 8 hours. Because I'm not 100% after dialysis. Most people aren't. Hemodialysis is very, very hard on your body and drains you physically. So I'm not able to work a full-time job. In fact, I'm not even able to work a part-time job with everything I've got going on because I've got so many doctor's appointments and so many procedures and so many things that keep me from living what most people consider a normal, productive life. I talked about it in one of my last videos that when my doctors first told me that while I was still hospitalized that I wouldn't be able to work a 9 to 5, that was devastating for me. Again, I value myself on my ability to contribute to society and more locally even to be able to provide for my family. And when I was told I wouldn't be able to work and provide for my family, that tore me apart. But here I am just over a year after my initial hospitalization, and I'm on disability. I'm on Social Security disability. And a lot of people think that that's great. And that means that I've got all this free time to just sit on my ass and do nothing. But the people who think that don't know a damned thing about what it's like to be on Social Security disability. Again, I spend almost as much time going to doctor's appointments to keep me alive, or recovering from a procedure, or recovering from dialysis, or or just having a bad day because my Wegner's is kicking my ass. You know, a lot of the videos that I've put out have been, you know, talking about what I went through, but I want this to be more about what I'm going through. Some days I feel great and I might try to go for a run. Let's be clear, when I say go for a run, it's to the end of the block and back, because that's all I've got in me. I may have a good day and want to go to the park. I may want to go walk around the shopping mall, or I may want to go do something, and that's great. But the reality is those days are few and far between. And more often than not, I'm slow, I'm lethargic. I wouldn't be a good fit for most jobs because I'm not able to give 100% most of the time. May of last year, I had an episode of Press, and I'll link to what that is in the description below. That episode of Press caused me to have multiple seizures back to back for hours. It caused lesions on my brain that affect me pretty regularly. The left side of my body is considerably weaker than the right side. That's one of the reasons I walk with a limp. But more than that, I have days where my brain's real fuzzy, where I can't think straight, where I have a real hard time forming a sentence. I'll be in the middle of having a conversation with somebody and I'll use the same word 5 times throughout the conversation, but the 6th time I need that word, it's not there. For the life of me, I can't remember what word it was or what we were talking about. And I can't tell you how frustrating that is. You know, growing up, I've always been a fairly intelligent, articulate person, and to have that taken away from me is really heart-wrenching. I remember when I was younger, my great-grandfather was somebody that I always admired. He was always one of those active go-getter types who always had something witty to say and was always very quick and sharp. And then one day he had a stroke, and it changed who he was. It changed his sharp-wittedness, and it slowed him down considerably. He was always good with numbers, and all of a sudden he couldn't even balance his checkbook anymore. While that was hard for those of us around him, his family, it was harder for him because he knew that he had been diminished. He remembered what it was like to be sharp and quick-witted and a clever guy. And he knew that was gone. Well, not at the same level or to the same degree. I experience that for myself now. I have bad days where I just can't put together a thought, and that sucks. You know, again, like I've mentioned in the past, I'm very, very fortunate to have my wife with me to go to my doctor's appointments, because there are days I just forget about certain diagnoses that I have. I forget about certain symptoms I have had, or certain things that have happened to me at the hospital. Some days those things just slip my mind. And I was there. I experienced those things. But I'll be goddamned if I can remember them sometimes. That's really hard on a person's mental state. To know that there's so much stuff that's been diminished in a person's brain or a person physically. It'll really set you back and knock you down a peg. A year and a half ago, I used to play with our kid. I mean, I still do, but I used to pick him up in the air and I'd throw him and I'd swing him around, and some days I can't pick up my cat because my joints hurt so bad, or I'm so fatigued, or because I've lost so much mass, both fat mass and muscle mass in the last year, that I don't have the strength to pick him up anymore. And that's heartbreaking. Because when I have a good day, he and I can play, and we can jump around and we can goof off and we can have a good time. But like I said, those days are few and far between. You know, most days it hurts when I try to pick him up. And some days that's all he wants is to be picked up. And I can't do that. So for people to say that people who are disabled, whether it's mentally or physically, are lesser, maybe to some degree we are. But you'll never actually know what that's like until you've experienced it for yourself. Until you've had to care for someone, I mean truly care for someone who is mentally or physically disabled due to an illness or birth defect, or whatever the case may be. For you people who criticize us, who say that we don't amount to anything, that we're not real people, part of me wishes that you could sit here and experience that same thing that I'm experiencing. To know what it's like to have your brain capacity diminished and know it. To have your physical capacity limited and have that affect your kids. To not be able to work because of your new lifestyle that you've got no control over. Part of me wishes that on you, so that you could truly understand what it's like to go through something like this on a day-to-day basis. But the human side of me hopes that you never have to.